To begin, in order to access Google Docs, my first step is going to be to sign up for a Gmail account. To do that, I'm going to have to go to gmail.com. So I'm going to click on my browser. I'm going to use Firefox. And I'm going to type in gmail.com into my address bar, hit enter. And I'm going to go over to where it says create an account and click on that. As you will find later on, creating a Gmail account will give you access to not just email and not just Google Docs, but a whole host of other web-based utilities. In order to use these utilities, though, Google requires that I divulge some personal information, so I will need to be very mindful of how I protect my privacy online, so that I can use all of these utilities safely. For starters, I'll maybe enter my first name here, and maybe just my last initial, and choose an email address that will be easy to remember, but also unique. So I may use my name, if I so chose, put a period in between my first name and my last initial, and then maybe use a number that is easy for me to remember for a particular sentimental reason. Then I'm going to come over to where it says check availability just to see if this is even a choice that I can use for a login name. And Google says, yep, that's okay. So now I'm going to choose a password. Now passwords that use numbers and symbols in place of letters makes it exponentially more difficult for a hacker to crack than a password that just uses letters alone. So if I want to do my best to protect my privacy without getting overly sophisticated with other applications, this is my best first line of defense. So here, I'm going to type in the password Weird Al with another symbol after it, but rather than just using the letters, I'm going to substitute the number 3 for the letter E, and the @ symbol from what's commonly used in email for the A, and the number 1 for the L at the end of Al. And as you can see here, Google rates this password as quite strong. If I make such a complicated password and I don't quite remember what it is later on, or what symbols I used to substitute for letters, I'm going to need to choose a security question that will allow me to reset my password later. And the best option here is to write my own question and choose something that is so bizarre or so wacky that the only person in the world that could possibly know the answer would be me. So I might even ask something as ridiculous as, how many hairs are there on my head? And I personally would answer that as 11 billion. Obviously that's probably not the accurate number of hairs on my head, but that doesn't matter. That's just what I would say to this question. So I've created my own question, and I've created an answer that I'm the only person in the world that's going to know the right way to answer that question. From there, I'm going to need to fill out the rest of this form just like I would fill out for setting up any other email account. I put in my birthday here, and I will do my best to read this word verification picture here. I could always click the handicap symbol in case I need an audio cue. Review the terms of service, and then I can click accept here to create my account. If you already have a Gmail account made as I do, simply enter your login and your password on gmail.com to access Gmail, just as you would for any other email account or Facebook. This will take you to Gmail, which in this case serves as your home base for anything you choose to do on Google. As you can see up here on the top of my window, there is Google Calendar, there's Google Photos, there's Google Reader. There's just 1,000,001 different utilities that Google adds and invents every single day. For this tutorial, I'm going to focus on Google Documents. To access that, I'm going to click the Documents tab. And that will open a new tab in my browser. Here I'm using Firefox, or depending on how my browser is set up at home, it may end up opening another window. But either way, that will take me to what you see before you is the main interface for Google Docs. Just for starters, I'm going to go ahead and click Create New, and you can see I have many different options to choose from that kind of mirror what you would find in OpenOffice or the Microsoft Office suite. I've got Document, which is basically like Microsoft Word, Presentation, which is basically like PowerPoint, Spreadsheet, which is basically like Excel, Form, which allows you to create forms that you might use for worksheets and such, a drawing utility, and something else for organization purposes called Collection. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm mainly going to focus on the Microsoft Word counterpart on Google, which is just the document part. So I'm going to click on that, and that will open up a brand new tab and bring me to an untitled document that will look pretty much the same as it does on Microsoft Word. Here's an example of a document one of my students might make on Google Docs in a remedial middle school level literature class. As you can see up here, I have a familiar assortment of editing tools I would find in your average offline word processor program. Right up here in my menu bar if I were to click through it. And in my taskbar I've got undo to negate any errors I might make while typing, redo to bring something back that I might accidentally delete, and a range of familiar tools for changing fonts and styles, which I'll do here for the name of this book. If I was a student writing some answers to comprehension questions, if I want to put numbering in there automatically so I can correspond my answers to the questions being asked, I could do that right here. The first major difference you'll probably notice in Google Docs right away, if you were to look through particularly the File section of your menu bar, or on the taskbar looking to the left where it's usually found, is that the Save or Save As options are curiously missing. Don't panic though. If you look in the upper right hand corner as I type the answer to the next question, there's an option I could click to save the document right away, but as you can see, Google Docs did it before I even got the chance. And even if disaster were to strike, like my computer suddenly freezing, or I accidentally close my browser with a misstroke of the keys, Google Docs will save nearly everything up to that last word or that last graphic that I squeeze in at that last possible second, which is really amazing. Of course, in order to retrieve that file later, I need to give it a name that is relevant to what I'm working on, but is also easy to remember, of course. And to do that, all I need to do is come up to this box where it says Untitled Document, click here, and Google Docs will prompt me to enter a new name for this document. So I will call it Chapter 5, The Wave Cues for Questions, and click OK. And there you have it. That's how I basically save my file and give it a name so I can organize it later. If I ever wanted to change the name of this document, I can always come right back up here to this box and do what I just did. Or do that in the main hub, which I'll show you in just a moment. Let's go back to the main hub for a moment to check out how Google Docs can help me organize my work over time and make retrieving any file that I work on a cinch. You'll notice here that in my browser I kept the tab open for the main hub in the background, but in case I happened to close that as I was working, I could always click the Google Docs logo here or click the Documents tab on the top of my browser, and that will take me right back to the main hub here. In clicking all items, I can see every single file that I've worked on ever since I started using Google Docs. But as this list grows and grows, it's going to become harder and harder for me to find the file that I'm looking for at a later date. So I have some options here. I may toggle to sort my files by their title, putting them in alphabetical order. I may choose to pick the last one that I opened, and that'll break it down by date, at least according to the last one I opened, or maybe just the last one that I modified and worked on the most recently. Right now I've got everything broken down into just a list where I see just the name of the file, but I could also toggle details and get a little bit more information about when I worked on it and who I worked on it with, which I'll get to later. I may also choose to make a collection by clicking Create New and clicking Collection. And this is basically like creating a file folder on Windows or Mac or Linux. So Google Docs will prompt me to make a name for this collection or this file folder. And so maybe I'll choose to name this literature homework. And there you see on the left in the sidebar here, my collection. I have some options here that I could pursue. I could change the color if that helps me organize it. I would need to go back to my list of documents, and I would want to take that document that I was working on and put it into that collection, just like I would drag a file into a file folder. And there you'll see Google Docs says that my file has been added to that collection or that file folder. And so anytime in the future, if I'm clicking around looking at other things, maybe I'm looking at this collection, I might go back to that collection, and there it is. There's the file that I'm looking for. Of course, I can always use Google's powerful built-in search engine to find the exact file I'm looking for immediately, even if I forget the file name. I could type in the file name if I remember what it was, Chapter 5, and you see here it even locates it right there for me. I don't even have to push enter. But let's say I don't even remember what the file name is because I wrote this thing eons ago, but I do remember that somewhere in there I may have written the main character of the book that I happen to be reading for class. So I could type in that main character's name, and it will ask me if I want to search for all files that have that name in it or whatever that text is that I'm looking for. And I can click this, or I'll just hit enter. And bam! There it is. It found the exact file that I'm looking for. Now granted, in the files that I've made here in this tutorial, I only made one that had this character's name in it. But you get the idea. This will definitely help me narrow down my search if I am lost later trying to recover that file. Everything that I post onto Google Docs pretty much stays there permanently because I am saving my file on Google servers, saving it almost like in the cloud, so to speak. So the only way that I would be able to lose anything is if I purposely drag the file into the trash here, as this Google Docs will tell me it's been moved to the trash, and then I could go to the trash and say empty trash. Just as I would on a Mac or on a Windows computer, I would use a recycling bin. And of course Google Docs will caution me saying, are you sure you totally want to permanently delete all of this? And I'll say, okay, I'm totally sure. And bam! Now there's no way I could possibly recover those files. But I would have to make that conscious effort to take those files and move them into the trash and delete them in order to get rid of them. And so as you can see, Google Docs is a wonderful utility to use, especially for those who struggle with keeping their work organized and easily retrievable at any given time.